Welcome, accomplices. I'm Lynda Norman. I'm a watercolor artist in the beautiful province of British Columbia. I'm happy you're here with me today. I'm going to play around on some nice little rough 100% cotton paper, a little bit of loose intuitive painting. I think I'll incorporate some plastic wrap in all of that just to get some texture and just have some fun. So I have this idea, and I've been enjoying my time pardon me, on my weekly sessions with the Society for Learning and Retirement here in our town, teaching a group of 16 people just some techniques to help loosen up with the watercolor practice, and really been having some fun with the plastic wrap. And it's not something that I've used often, but when I do use it, it's always fun, and it usually surprises me with how beautiful that texture can be. And so we'll go through the process of getting all of that ready. But in the meantime, as always, I just want to make sure that my paints are wet and juicy. Today in my palette space here, I've got my typical Daniel Smith Mayan Dark Blue, French Ultramarine, Undersea Green, Quinacridone Gold, Quinacridone Rose, some Burnt Umber, and a little bit of buff titanium. And the buff titanium I'd really love for certain things. It's getting, I'm finding it's a bit tacky, a bit sticky, so I'm not sure we'll use much of that, but it's there if I need it. And then I've got my Lunar Series paints, Daniel Smith Lunar Series, and there's Lunar Black, Lunar Blue, Lunar Violet, Lunar Red Earth, Lunar Red Rock, Lunar Earth, and just a titanium white, or this is Chinese white, pardon me. And a little bit of serpentine in there. So just in case I need to, reach for something where I want a bit more texture. And actually I lied. This is Tiger's Eye, and this is the Lunar Earth. And I get fooled by that because before I purchased it, I really thought that the Lunar Earth would be more brown, grayish brown, that kind of thing. And it's actually quite orange, whereas the Lunar Red Rock is I think along the same color lines, but more intense and a bit redder. And the Lunar Series is something that, like I said, I'm still practicing with that. I'm going to see Nicholas Lopez, who is the master of the granulating paints, in August. I'm going to Calgary to the International Watercolor Festival there, and I'm taking a 2-day workshop with Nicholas. And when I come back, I hope to share some of what I've learned then. But it's here at the ready. I just, you never know when you want to incorporate some of that. So I think what I'd like to do today is work on a square. And apparently the square is the new thing. So square paper. I found these square mats online, which are lovely, and I did have a measure thing here. Let's take a look. This one, the opening is 9.5. So the outside is interesting. Basically, that's interesting. So the very outside is pretty much 12 inches. So if you were to, find a frame that has a 12-inch opening to put this in, that would be great. So the mat is 9.5 by 9.5. Oh, and by the way, I'm using my Baohong Masters watercolor paper. I just absolutely adore this. If I can't get my Arche paper in the size or the way I want it, the Baohong Masters is my next go-to. Cold press matte. This says grain fin, grano fino, fine grain, but it still has a really lovely texture to it. And for a lot of intuitive and loose painting, you want that texture. The texture of that paper really helps just subtly move that water and pigment around a little bit. 100% cotton as always. And it's mold made, pH neutral, chlorine free, and a natural gelatin sizing. So I think all of that combined together is what makes it such a beautiful paper. I've been getting it from Michael Solovyev's Watercolor Online site, and that's really the only place I've been able to source it lately. So if you know of any other places where you can find, pardon me, the Baohong Masters series, please let me know. And I did mention Michael's Watercolor Online. Another site that I mention almost every time we talk is leaveneds and brushes. And I had an email from Tracy Levinson over the weekend, and I am so sad to say that he is experiencing some very, very serious health issues and will be unable to continue his brush making at this stage, unfortunately. I am heartbroken and very sad, but very grateful to have Tracy's brushes on hand, and hopefully someone will step forward and carry on his business. I don't know that maybe he even has the strength right now to share his knowledge. That goes very deep, understandably, but that's sort of where we're at. So unfortunately, they are no longer, at least for the time being, no longer available. But I will continue to use them and think of Tracy every time I pick up one of his exquisite brushes. So Tracy, if you do happen to see this somewhere along the line, much love to you from me and from all of my subscribers. I know how much they appreciate what you have brought to us and to the watercolor world. So today I'm going to use my favorite Levinson brush. And now, it's sort of like a case of bragging because I feel very special that I have this brush. But here we go. So the paper is 12 by 12. The opening is in this mat is 9.5 by 9.5. So I'm just going to measure my tape. I do want to be, more conscious nowadays about how I'm sizing my paintings, and I just want to make sure that there's a bit of a border here so that I don't need to paint right off to the edge, and there's a bit of, there's room for me to put my design, paint right up to the tape, and then I'm not losing any of that when I put the mat on. So this is 1-inch tape. It's just slightly smaller. It's hard to see. I'll turn it this way. It's just slightly narrower. So if I was to put this right to the edge of my block of paper, I've got about 1/4 of an inch on each side, which will allow a bit of wiggle room to fit the design into the frame. I'm just going to turn it so I can see that better. There's the way we have the lighting set up, sometimes it's just a bit challenging for me to see things the way the light hits. So I'm going to do this. And that should leave the opening just exactly right. Yes, so I've got a bit of wiggle room on both sides there, so that will work just fine. And the thought I had for this this little painting was, I've used plastic wrap many times in the past for the rocky, the landfall area, and quite often I do that with a vignette. And I thought about doing another vignette today, and then I thought I would love to do the plastic wrap in the sky. So that means it's more challenging to do a vignette because I would do the sky first, and if you were to put droplets on for your vignette, if you didn't use all the droplets, they would spread out and make like splotches and white blots and stuff. So I think I'm going to do it just a little bit differently today. So I will wet my page. I'm painting on a block, so it's glued on all 4 sides with a little bit of an opening on the top. Each block, each manufacturer has their own way of placement of where that little opening will be, so you'll have to just sort of check that out. I'm going to wet the whole thing just because I like how things can flow together. And I'm going to have to paint quickly because I want to get the plastic wrap on while the paint and the pigment water is still there on the surface of the page, but I also want to get some background things in here. So my typical skies are Mayan dark blue. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of French ultramarine blue into this, just to kind of brighten it up a tiny bit. But with the Mayan dark blue, I'm going to get a little bit of dark in there. And with the addition of the plastic wrap, I'm hoping that that's going to leave some nice kind of gray markings and things happening. So let's see how we do with that. And this little brush is losing some hairs. That's okay, because when we put the plastic wrap on, we're going to be just fine. So I'm just going to leave that. I'm not worried about white spots and things because it's all going to move around anyway. It's going to be quite light once I get the plastic wrap on, and of course our paints always do dry lighter. And then I think my trees are going to be a little bit loose and flowy because the page is wet. I'm going to go in with my Mayan dark blue, and let me look here. I always start on this side of the page for some reason. It's just the way I do things. And I'm just going to drop some really thick Mayan dark blue into some places here, sort of in the shape of trees, so triangular, nothing too specific. And I'm going to let that paint sort of diffuse out into the moisture on the page. The Mayan dark blue is another one of those pretty nice granulating colors, so it's going to give some pretty beautiful effects. And it depends on, you know, the amount of water on the page and how thick and how much pigment you have on your brush, as to how much of that is going to really expand out into what is on the page in terms of moisture. But I'm going to put this, I think, just right up to that black tape. And I'm not worried too much about forming the perfect tree. I'm just going to get some shapes in here. That's really all I'm interested in at this point. If they're a little cockeyed, that's okay. Trees are you know, natural and beautiful, and right now we have a tree in our backyard that's laying on its side almost because of all the wind we've had, so that's a bit concerning. So that's going to have to probably come out. Now I'm putting this next block of trees just a little bit more close to the bottom of the page, so I want to get that depth so that this piece here will look like it's a little further away. Okay. And I think with this, because I want to do all that beautiful texture with the plastic wrap, I don't really want my land bits to be huge and the big focus. I want to see what that plastic wrap can do for us. And some of these will dry a little bit lighter and some a little bit darker. I love how the water has sort of pulled some of these bits in different directions. So that was with the Mayan blue. The next process or piece of color that I usually go with is my undersea green, and I can see it's really warm in our town today. It's going to go up to 30 Celsius. It's cool in my studio because we're at the lower level, but still, maybe it's because the air conditioner is moving or something. The paints do tend to dry a little quicker sometimes. But I'm going to get a little bit of undersea green, again, very thick and rich. And as usual, I just want to put a little bit of that in the front of these trees and maybe have a few bits coming out the side. The undersea green is also a bit granulating, and that comes because when you mix, when the companies who make these beautiful paints make their colors, they blend different pigments together. And when that happens, the pigments in these kind of paints are rich, they're minerals, they're not dyes or chalk. So each one has its own property and its own weight. And so when you have two of those in a mixture, one's going to settle faster than the other. So that's what causes the granulation and the exciting movement. And undersea green typically is French ultramarine blue and quinacridone gold, and which are the two of the other colors that I have in my palette. And I mean, I could mix my own, but I prefer to not do that, and I like to just have the undersea green in the palette, quick access if I want to do extra highlights and additions. The French ultramarine blue and the quinacridone gold are naturals to come in and add those extra bits. So that's my reasoning behind that. And we'll just get a couple of placed bits of the green. And put some there. And maybe just a tiny bit there. It's going to be quite wet, but that's okay. My quinacridone gold, as always, just here and there. I really want to avoid patterns, polka dots. So I'll make some marks rounded, some more angular, some more horizontal, and just a little bit here and there. The quinacridone gold, again, has such beautiful properties, and it's going to push away any other pigments that are there. Pardon me. Now, getting ready for the plastic wrap to come into play. I'm just going to use my Hake brush. This is my Ron Ranson Hake brush, Hake. I've heard it's pronounced hockey. I'm still trying to get my brain around that. The only place I've been able to find these is at Jackson's Art, and that's online, and it's from Pro Art. So the Ron Ranson Hake brush by Pro Art, available at Jackson's Art, and they're an online company. So with this brush, and the reason I use this is because it's a goat hair, but it's a little bit stiffer than some of the ones you buy, in local craft stores or whatever. It's got a bit more firmness to it, so I have more control. I love how, the blues and the greens are kind of already moving down into that water that's already on the page. So I'm going to use the same brush, one dab, thick and rich paint, because my palette has been ready and waiting. I have an idea. As my grandson would say, I has an idea. We're going to put a little bit of blue here, but I think it's going to be a bit lighter. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. The lovely thing about the plastic wrap process is that it's a lot of we'll see. It's like opening a gift once you take it off. And because I've used the undersea green up above, I'm going to add just a tiny bit of that. Very randomly, I don't want a pattern appearing here. I don't mind that there's a bit of white coming in from the sides. That's just all going to be beautiful. And then last but not least, a little bit. That's going to be a lot. Just a tiny bit of the quinacridone gold. Let some of that run a little. I can see it's already lightening up. I want to add, just for interest and texture, I do want to add some more of the Mayan blue, just here and there. You can see where it's running down on the bottom. It's just lots of moisture and water. All right. So what I'm going to do now, I tore these off ahead of time because I didn't want you to watch me struggling and losing my battle with the dispenser. So I'm going to scrunch all this up. The lighter parts are probably going to show more highlights. The darker parts will be more shadow, I think. Just a little more green in there for my liking. And now I've scrunched up my plastic wrap. I'm going to sort of form it to what I've shaped as the bottom of my little land formations here. I have a thought. Just to make it easier, I'm going to cut this little piece off here. Easier said than done. And I'm going to put that right in there because I have a feeling that my piece for the sky will be harder to get down in there. And now my sky is still rather damp, but not so much on that one side. I'm just going to clean my brush a little bit and get some more of that blue in here. And a wet brush, damp brush. Just, I want that plastic wrap to have something to move around and play around with, right? So the more scrunched, the better. And I'm going to lay this sort of with the point coming down on that side. And we'll have that come over there. And I kind of just want to go around. I don't really want my trees to be looking fractured like this is going to look. And now typically you would leave this until it dried. But I'm not the most patient person. And I'm just going to leave this just for a moment. And while I'm doing that, we'll just chat a little bit about, again, understanding by doing the relationship between the water and the pigment and the paper and what you're doing. And that is often the hardest thing for most people to come to terms with. And that just comes through practice, through trial and error. Try a little bit more water, try a little less water. I'm just, going on what I'm learning by teaching, more than one person at a time, in a group setting, as I'm doing more recently. Most people do not use enough or as much water as is required. So keep that in mind. If you think you've got enough water, try a little more. Okay, so, and also, you'll get a sense and a feel. So what I've done here, I've got enough pigment and balance of water. I know that I don't have to leave it all till it's completely dry. It's at a point where it's dry enough that when I pull the plastic wrap off, it's not going to move around. The water's not, as visible and there as much as it would need to be for that to happen. Even though this is really beautiful 100% cotton, 140-pound paper, it's buckling. That plays into it as well. So we will have a look here. And because the paint at the bottom was a little thicker, a little more juicy, I'm going to leave that. We'll take this off first. Okay. Now it's wet enough that I can tip that. And these little bits of puddles, they weren't really even puddles, they were just areas where there's a bit more water. I just want them to flow a tiny bit so that they don't leave quite as hard an edge. And a few little hard edges, they're okay. And if you look at clouds, that's another thing, I advise, if you can, stare at some clouds for a while. They're not always puffball shapes. There's fantastic things going on up there. And we can take that into our daily practice. So I'm just using my Hake brush, as dry as I can get it. I could grab a completely dry, fresh one, but I think this is going to be fine. They do hold a ton of water, as I said, so you just want to be sure that you're not adding more water to the page. And if I see any bits of puddles or anything, I can just go in with a thirsty brush. It's called a thirsty brush. So because of the nature of a watercolor brush, it's going to want to wick up some water. So you can use that to pick up a tiny bit here and there. These are wonderful because there's a bit of real estate on the end that you can use to your advantage. So if you spread it out, you can just sort of dab up and blot things up. If you were to keep it too pointed, then you're going to get a line, and that might be a little bit more challenging to deal with. So I'm going to take this little guy off in the middle. We're going to have some more of those little puddly things, and I'm just barely touching the surface. And I don't know if I've shared this before, this analogy with you, but the other day at one of my classes, I was seeing people exuberantly attacking their page with their brush, and really part of the relationship with your paint and your water and your paper and your brushes is learning how gentle to be. There are times when, yes, you can go at it with vigor, but the analogy that I used is, imagine you had road rash on your leg. You fell off your bike and you got some road rash, and you were applying some salve to that. This is how gentle you want to be with your paper. That, if you can think of that, and you're just touching the surface with your pigment. You're adding your pigment to the water on the surface. And this is how you get a loose and intuitive kind of effect. It's just by introducing the pigment to the water and allowing some of that to evolve on its own. So again, I just softened a little bit of that. I don't mind that there was a bit of darker spots. I'm just wondering, now that there's a bit less water, I was hoping to get a little more interest in the sky. I think I should have left it, but that's okay. We got some interesting things happening here, and I'll just go in with my paper towel. So that's a lesson learned, right? If you wanted to do this, I would definitely leave it on a little longer. There are some interesting little bits there, but I think we could have achieved a bit more of that by letting that dry a bit. So let's see what's going to happen here. All right, this I love. This I love. And I'm not going to fiddle with this. I'm going to let that dry, because I think what's happening here is quite beautiful. There we go. Oh, and I got a little dab of some kind of color up there. That's not what we want. Again, if you have a bit of an issue or some blossoms or some blooms, lightest feather touch, and just encourage. All right. So I love how this has come together with these rocks. This could be the banks of a very rugged riverside kind of thing. When I look back here at my trees now, I can go back with a little bit of my Mayan blue, and this one looks like somebody ran over it with a lawnmower or something. So I'm just gonna create something that looks a little more tree-like. And maybe there's some dots here, so I'm going to make that into just another tree. So that, if you aren't fortunate enough to have a little Levinson brush, you could probably try something. Let's see what we've got here. There are some beautiful liner brushes out there that are available to you through your local art stores, online even. Pardon me. I don't have my watercolor online liner brush in that mix there. It's probably left it with one of my students. But here's another liner. It's very fine. It's called a 2/0. So 0 twice. And that would work as well. Just get the paint on the tip and work your tree shapes. It gives you that flexibility. Here's where you want the flex, right? There's times when you don't want that flex, but here is where it's handy to have it, and it gives you that nice little wiggly bit on the trees. And we'll just shadow that in a tiny bit. We'll give this one a bit more definition. And as far as a loose and intuitive landscape goes, I'd call that done. I'm happy to let things dry and evolve on this bottom part. I might go back in after it's completely dry with a thirsty brush or just a slightly damp bright, and carve in a couple little lines just for highlights. But honestly, probably with this one, I wouldn't even do that. I'm happy with the way it is. I'm happy with the way the color is blended. I probably, maybe if I do it again, I would leave the sky plastic on a little longer. But I still got some nice little effects, and maybe after I sit with it for a bit, maybe I'm okay with that. That sky is probably dramatic enough. I've got the drama happening down here, so yeah, I'd be happy with, I think, just leaving it the way it is. Thanks for joining me today, accomplices. I really had fun just playing with pigment and a little bit of plastic wrap for some texture. I'm pretty happy with the way things turned out. I love surprises, and that's often the best way to get them is to just let things flow. If you like what you've seen, I invite you to subscribe to my channel, or visit my website, bandrystudio.com, or head on over to our members area. We'll have some fun things going on there.